What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, retired Olympic gold medalist, Hall of Famer, iconic superstar, former pound-for-pound king, Andre S.O.G. Ward. He puts up a somewhat of a cryptic post that got the fans riled up because Andre Ward, he's been linked to 4-division world champion, Mexican superstar boxer, who is currently now the undisputed super middleweight world champion after defeating Andre Ward's essentially friend and protege, in a sense, in former IBF super middleweight world champion, superstar boxer Caleb Sweethand Plant. Caleb Plant is now 21 wins, 1 loss, no draws, 12 wins by way of knockout, 29 years of age, 6'1" with a 74-inch arm reach. Prior to the fight, Andre Ward, who's retired, was linked to CANELO Alvarez. Why? Because, for one, this is the division that Andre Ward ruled. He won the Super 6 tournament here. Andre Ward, this was his division, okay? He ruled this division. Now CANELO Alvarez, 57 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws, 39 big wins by way of knockout. He is 31 years of age, standing 5'8" with a 70-inch arm reach. He rules the division. He became the first undisputed super middleweight in the history of the sport of boxing. He became historic, the first 4-belt major sanction belt holder, Mexican-born fighter, to hold all 4 major sanction belts as well. So he created history 2 times over. Andre Ward, 32 wins, no losses, no draws, 16 wins by way of knockout, 6 feet tall, 71-inch arm reach. Andre Ward is now currently 36 years of age. But with that said, this was the division he ruled. He had to move up to get competition. So he moved up in 2016 to fight then light heavyweight king Sergey Crusher Kovalev, who was undefeated at the time, 30 wins, no losses, 1 draw. And Sergey Kovalev was running through all his opponents. And Andre Ward, he moved up to light heavyweight to challenge Sergey Kovalev in his division. He beat Sergey Kovalev by unanimous decision the first time. They fought again in June of 2017, and he stopped Sergey Kovalev, got a TKO victory. But prior to that, like I stated, he ruled the super middleweight division. So Andre Ward, he won the Super 6 tournament. He ruled the super middleweight division, okay? That's his division. And now CANELO Alvarez campaigns in that division, and he made that division home. And he's not only unified, but in under a calendar year, CANELO Alvarez has become undisputed in under a calendar year in this very same division. So it begs the question, right? Why didn't CANELO Alvarez choose to move up to super middleweight when Andre Ward was reigning in this division? Okay, neither did CANELO Alvarez's biggest rival to date, Gennady Triple G Golovkin, who was the ruler in the middleweight division. He chose not to go up and fight, Andre Ward, 1 division up, 1 division north as well. Andre Ward was even calling for Triple G to fight at the catchweight, and he chose not to. So everybody begs the question now, could CANELO Alvarez beat Andre Ward, or could Andre Ward beat CANELO Alvarez? Andre Ward, in many people's eyes, retired prematurely. Andre Ward retired at the tender age of 32 years of age, and he cited injuries, okay? Andre Ward had shoulder injuries, he had knee injuries. That's the reason why Andre Ward called it a career, okay? And many people thought it was far too early at 32 years of age with a lot left in the tank, and he just took over, the light heavyweight division. He beat the king in light heavyweight, and everybody was calling for unification bouts against, Adonis Stevenson, at light heavyweight. There was big fights that you want to see Andre Ward in that we just never got to see him in. Even in the super middleweight division, there was a fight with a guy by the name of Lucian Bute, who refused to fight Andre Ward in a massive, mega unification bout. And Lucian Bute, he just refused to fight Andre Ward, and that fight never came to fruition. It was a unification bout that would have been huge for Andre Ward in his career, and Lucian Bute was not willing to oblige, okay? Thus the reason why Andre Ward never became undisputed in the super middleweight division. Then he moved on. He cleaned out the division, essentially, and then he moved on to light heavyweight. But Adonis Stevenson ended up losing. Andre Ward You know, like he stated, he suffered some knee injuries. So Andre Ward, he called it a career, okay? And he hung it up, you know. But people wanted to see Andre Ward against the absolute best. So you wanted to see Andre Ward against the absolute best there was to offer, and we didn't get to see, you know, Andre Ward in that massive mega pay-per-view fight, okay? Sergey Kovalev was a huge fight. You know, but Sergey Kovalev was never the massive a draw Canelo Alvarez is, okay? And so Andre Ward was giving Caleb Plant some tips. He was helping Caleb Plant out, helping Caleb Plant prepare for this Canelo Alvarez fight. And when asked about the outcome of the fight, Andre Ward, he stated that the fight is not going the distance, and he picked Caleb Plant to win essentially by stoppage. Right? He said the fight ain't going the distance, and he picked Caleb Plant to win. Obviously, Andre Ward, he stated that Caleb Plant still got to do, you know, the necessary work in the ring, but you know, he believes he had all the tools to win the fight. But obviously, that wasn't the case. Caleb Plant was dropped twice and stopped in the 11th round. So Andre Ward is void of that massive, you know, lucrative pay-per-view star. Canelo Alvarez is a much bigger draw, a much bigger star than Sergey Kovalev has ever been. He beat Chad Dawson, Carl Froch. You know, those are all, you know, huge fights, but they're not, you know, the crossover mega star that Canelo Alvarez represents. So he never had that in his career, okay? And so with that said, you know, there was reports and talks that you had Andre Ward's close friends like Timothy Desert Storm Bradley, former 2-division world champion, and turned analyst and co-host with Andre Ward as they taught boxing for ESPN Top Rank. And Timothy Bradley, you know, he stated that, you know, Andre Ward has been training. Andre Ward is working out. And he feels like if Andre Ward name was called by Canelo Alvarez, he would definitely accept that fight with Canelo Alvarez, okay? And then you had Andre Berto, former world champion, superstar boxer. Andre Berto, who was trained by Andre Ward's longtime trainer as well, Virgil Hunter, he stated that he knows Andre Ward is back in the gym. He knows there's some tricks up Andre Ward's sleeves, and there could be something coming down the pipeline. And he hinted at a possible return for Andre Ward against Canelo Alvarez as well, right? But obviously nothing is guaranteed. So most recently, you didn't get much of a response from Andre Ward after Caleb Plant was stopped and knocked out, okay? You know, he just responded to people comments about him and Canelo Alvarez's accomplishments. You had Sergio Moro, who stated that Canelo Alvarez, he accomplished becoming an undisputed champion in under a calendar year, something that it took Andre Ward to do in 2 years. So Andre Ward, he responded to Sergio Moro. He was responding to things like that, but he never truly responded to Caleb Plant completely losing the fight. You know, he never gave his true breakdown of what he thought took place and why the fight turned out the way it turned out. And 2 days after the fight, he posts this cryptic message of his boxing shoes. First, he posts a picture of him, a few pictures on his social media of him training, okay, and with the cameras on him. And then he posts a picture of him with his boxing shoes, and he said, heat only, right? Meaning, you know, giving the cryptic message that, you know, if you want the heat, these boxing, you know, they could come out of retirement, okay? So you post pictures of you training, and you post pictures of your boxing shoes, and you say heat only, okay, alluding to if you want this heat, these boxing shoes could come out of retirement, okay? Now, like Timothy Bradley, Andre Berto, they said, you know, he would only do so if Canelo Alvarez mentioned his name or, you know, asked him to come out of retirement. So Andre Ward, he did an interview, and he stated in the interview that it's ironic that Canelo Alvarez never ever mentioned his name when they were both fighting, because they were both fighting at the same time. Okay, Andre Ward, he just retired 4 years ago. Just think, Canelo Alvarez, he fought Floyd Mayweather in 2013. Okay, so Canelo Alvarez has been boxing for years now. Okay, he was already a world champion by the time he fought Floyd Mayweather and had defended his titles 4 or 5 times. So he was very active in the sport of boxing. And by the time now he lost every round to Floyd Mayweather, that being Canelo Alvarez, okay? And when Andre Ward was competing at that time, Floyd Mayweather was also still competing in the sport of boxing. So nobody viewed Canelo Alvarez as the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. And then, Floyd Mayweather retired. The mantle, the torch was just immediately passed automatically to Andre Ward, okay? And then when Terrence Crawford became undisputed at junior welterweight, the torch was passed directly to him because Andre Ward then retired, okay? So with that said, now Canelo Alvarez is viewed as the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, okay? And he campaigns at Andre Ward's division, 168. That's where he set up shop, and he's making that his home. So with that said, it begs the question, is Andre Ward, who's still young, 36 years of age, keep in mind, when Canelo Alvarez fought Floyd Mayweather was 36 years of age, okay, going on 37 years of age. So, it's around that same age bracket. He's not an old fighter at all, and he didn't take much punishment in his career. Now, again, he had issues with his knees. Maybe that's an issue, because he had issues with his knees. But for the most part, Andre Ward was a healthy guy. He didn't take much punishment, never got knocked out, So, Andre Ward definitely still, has it. And he's a person that stays in the gym. He has that Floyd Mayweather mentality where Andre Ward is never, out of shape, truly out of shape. Now, obviously, he has to get in boxing shape. Okay, that's two different things. But he's never completely out of shape at all. So, these cryptic posts that Andre Ward puts up alludes to this fight. This would be a mega massive showdown between Andre Ward and Canelo Alvarez. Okay, this is a fight that Canelo Alvarez will not be an overwhelming favorite to win. Andre Ward's skill set, Andre Ward pedigree. Andre Ward hasn't lost in the sport as a professional. And the last time he lost overall was when he was 12 years old. So this would be an enormous fight that would be, many people eyes, 50-50 fight. Maybe Andre Ward may need a tune-up fight, okay, to prepare himself. Who knows? But maybe Andre Ward comes straight out of retirement into this fight. This would be a fight for Canelo Alvarez to solidify himself as well in the history books. Now, he has a lot of accomplishments, a lot of things he accomplished, but this would solidify him. If he could beat Andre Ward, who hasn't lost since he was 12, he would get credit for beating Andre Ward. That's the style. Andre Ward would be the biggest win on his resume, the biggest accomplishment on Canelo Alvarez's resume, and this fight would do easy 1 million pay-per-view buys. Easy. And I'm sure they would do a 2-fight deal. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. That's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
Hi, my name is Heather the Heat Hardy, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.